Fantasy films used to run on pure imagination, untouched by test screenings or marketing forecasts. Creatures were built by hand, one frame at a time, and directors chased strange ideas instead of guaranteed returns. Heroes weren't always likable, plots didn't always make sense, and that unpredictability was part of the charm. In today's studio system, most of them wouldn't make it past the first development meeting.
A couple of days away from home isn't too bad. A couple of weeks? A month? More than a month?
Or 2, 3 years, perhaps.
Sinbad is back on the high seas, this time chasing down a mystical golden tablet that unlocks the secrets of a lost continent. Along the way, he battles enchanted statues, winged harpies, and even a towering centaur, all conjured by the evil magician Prince Korra, who is quite literally aging himself to death every time he casts a spell. Sinbad has to race against Korra to find the remaining pieces of the tablet, unlock the secrets of the Fountain of Destiny, and restore peace to the realm. It's an old-school adventure, where the line between magic and myth is as thin as a sword's edge. The real magic here came from Ray Harryhausen, the legendary stop-motion animator who created every creature by hand. The six-armed Kali statue is probably the film's most iconic moment. It took Harryhausen 4 months to animate the scene where Kali fights Sinbad and his crew. Each arm had to be moved one frame at a time, and the final sequence is still hypnotic, decades later. And right alongside the mythic beasts was Caroline Munro, whose journey to the role of Margiana is its own kind of legend. She wasn't the studio's first pick. They wanted a recognizable American star. But screenwriter Brian Clemens, who had worked with her before, wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept pushing, urging the producers to watch footage from Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. And when they finally saw it, they realized they'd been wrong. Why wouldn't this get made today? Well, for starters, the entire movie is a love letter to a version of the Mystic East that modern studios wouldn't touch with a 10-foot scimitar. The costumes, the architecture, the characters, all filtered through a Western gaze full of cliches and exoticism. On top of that, stop motion this intricate takes months and loads of money. Studios today would just use CGI, crank it out in half the time, and lose all the handcrafted charm that made this one special.
But I don't need a wife now. She'd only distract me from what I really want to do.
What's that?
To be a scholar and a scientist. To investigate nature and invent new things.
Set in plague-ridden 16th century Europe, Flesh+Blood follows a band of mercenaries led by Martin, a charismatic but brutal outlaw played by Rutger Hauer. After being betrayed by the nobleman who hired them, Martin and his crew go rogue, seizing a castle and kidnapping a young noblewoman named Agnes. What starts as a survival story turns into a messy, violent power struggle as loyalties shift and plague creeps in. It's raw, grimy, and unapologetically brutal, more of a historical fever dream than a classic hero's journey. One of the wildest things about this production was just how far director Paul Verhoeven pushed for realism. He filled the sets with actual mud, rotting animal parts, and unsanitary conditions to mimic the filthy chaos of the era. Cast and crew got sick during filming, and Verhoeven and Hauer famously clashed over the direction of the main character. Hauer wanted a little more nobility, while Verhoeven leaned into moral rot. Their relationship was so strained they didn't work together again for nearly a decade, despite being longtime collaborators before this. There's no way this would fly in today's Hollywood. Between the unflinching depictions of rape, torture, and plague, and the total absence of a clear moral compass, Flesh+Blood feels like the anti-blockbuster. Studios now would demand redemption arcs, a PG-13 cut, or at least a reason for audiences to root for someone. Throw in the medieval squalor and unsafe set practices, and this is the kind of movie that would end up either completely rewritten or relegated to the deepest corner of niche streaming.
You would do well to forget me and follow the Juns. With them you could die like a man. Not so with the priests of Ar. Goodbye, Dar. Be careful.
Dar is born with a gift. He can telepathically communicate with animals. After his village is destroyed by evil sorcerers, he grows up in the wilderness, trained by beasts and bent on revenge. He's basically a shirtless psychic Tarzan with a sword, and his allies include a black panther, a pair of ferrets, and a golden eagle. The plot plays out like a mashup of Conan the Barbarian and a Saturday morning cartoon, only with way more nudity and impalings. Behind the scenes, things were just as wild. That Black Panther? Not actually a panther. It was a tiger dyed black. Panthers were too unpredictable, so the crew used non-toxic dye to fake it, touching up the tiger daily and dealing with its, let's say, temperamental behavior. Mark Singer, who played Dar, did most of his own stunts and formed a real bond with the animals. By the end of filming, the eagle would only take commands from him. Today, there's zero chance this movie gets made the same way. Animal safety regulations, digital alternatives, and public backlash would shut that production down before the ferrets hit set. Add in the heavy camp, casual nudity, and sword and sorcery cheesiness, and this is firmly in cult territory.
All I know is how to butcher men. From now on, I shall learn to love them. I'm weary of battle.
John Boorman's Excalibur plays out like a wild fever dream of the King Arthur legend. The film doesn't care about historical accuracy and instead dives headfirst into a world of glowing swords and muddy prophecy. Characters speak like they already know they're in a doomed story, and nothing they do can stop it. The plot moves in jagged steps that feel more like myth being remembered than a story being told. It's strange and serious and kind of brilliant in a way that modern Arthur movies never quite are. Boorman went full mythic with the visuals. He shot through colored filters and cast actual unknowns. Patrick Stewart, Liam Neeson, and Gabriel Byrne all got their starts here. Even his son plays young Mordred, dressed in shining gold armor that makes him look like a possessed Oscar statuette. The stylized look and heightened tone give the film an otherworldly feel that no later adaptation has quite matched. Modern studios wouldn't come near something like Excalibur because its fragmented storytelling and morally tangled characters would never make it past a development meeting. Without a marquee name to anchor the cast or a clean-cut hero to root for, the film doesn't fit the mold of a modern blockbuster.
Well, the only way out of here is to try one of these doors.
One of them leads to the castle at the center of the labyrinth, and the other one leads to certain death.
Sarah is an imaginative teenager tasked with babysitting her baby brother on a dreary afternoon. And out of frustration, she casually wishes the child away to the Goblin King, only to see him vanish moments later into a swirling vortex of magic and menace. With exactly 13 hours to rescue her brother, she must navigate an ever-shifting maze filled with peculiar creatures, bizarre riddles, staircases that lead nowhere, and rooms that reshape around her sense of wonder and fear. Labyrinth is a coming-of-age tale wrapped in fantasy, whimsical music, and the hypnotic presence of David Bowie, whose glittering costumes and sly charisma elevate every scene he inhabits. Behind the scenes, the film relied on astonishing practical effects and puppetry instead of cutting-edge digital trickery. The character Hoggle alone required 4 puppeteers to manipulate his facial expressions, while another performer lived inside the suit to give him life and movement. In one striking moment, crystal ball illusions were created entirely with sleight of hand by juggler Michael Moshen, who stood directly behind Bowie performing the trick blind, as Bowie mimed the motion on camera. Jennifer Connelly, just 15 at the time, carried the emotional weight of the story with a grounded performance that's since become iconic, though the age gap between her and Bowie's Jareth has raised eyebrows in retrospect. Scenes like the drugged peach sequence or the masquerade ballroom, once read as dreamlike or metaphorical, are now often interpreted as explorations of adolescent vulnerability, power dynamics, and the blurred lines between fantasy and seduction. And that's exactly why this would never get made today. Not like this, at least. Studios would either strip out the more ambiguous, unsettling elements or sanitize the story into a safe, CGI-heavy empowerment fable with no room for discomfort or complexity. The age gap, the layered metaphors about control and innocence, and the subversive tone would all be flagged early in development and reshaped to fit a market-tested formula. What makes Labyrinth so enduring is also what makes it impossible now. It treats adolescence as something mysterious and dangerous, not just quirky or inspirational.
Are you and Moran trying to set me up?
I don't work for Moran.
Then why is that bald policeman sitting outside watching your apartment? You remember him? Moran said he'd tailing me.
What are you gonna do?
The question is, what are you gonna do? You gonna turn off the tape, or are you gonna shoot me with a .45?
Highlander centers on Connor MacLeod, an immortal warrior born centuries ago in Scotland who learns that he will outlive every friend until only one immortal remains. His journey stitches together centuries of duels, betrayals, and survival instincts, leading him ultimately into modern-day New York City. The rule "there can be only one" echoes throughout the film, as 2 immortals battle across time, each hoping to claim ultimate power. Flashing between foggy highland valleys, dusty desert arenas, and neon-lit cityscapes, the film blends sword fights, rock music, and existential monologue into something daring and genre-bending. The sword choreography, handled by Bob Anderson, who famously trained the likes of Luke Skywalker and Aragorn, is deliberate and gritty, giving every duel a grounded, weighty impact that feels lived in. Sean Connery arrived on set for only 1 week, but managed to leave an unforgettable impression as Ramirez, the wise mentor whose brief scenes add emotional resonance and mystique. Meanwhile, the Queen soundtrack propelled the film's cultural legacy, mixing powerful ballads with action set pieces in a way few genre films dare to attempt. Modern studios would push for a polished remake with smoother pacing, well-known actors, and a clear setup for sequels and spin-offs. The jagged structure, rough violence, and odd sense of humor would be reshaped into something more conventional that feels easier to market and test with broad audiences. What makes Highlander endure isn't clarity or polish. It's the messy confidence of a film that never stops swinging.